Alrighty, folks. So today we're gonna go ahead and talk about the CX50 and whether or not this is actually a good road trip vehicle, considering now I have taken it on 2 of them. And one thing I have to say is I'm pretty impressed. We'll go ahead and talk about a few things in this regard, but in this respect, just to start off, with the actual answer, I literally would take this car on a road trip almost every time, if I could. With that, it's not always the most feasible, and I do have another car that I want to do road trips with as well, but this one is literally phenomenal. So let's talk about why it was phenomenal. First things first, with that, where did it go? It went to Tucson, and then it did end up going to California to go to Knott's Berry Farm. And with that, both times, this car has been an absolute pleasure to drive. So we'll go ahead and start off on, more of like the actual driving portion. For one, I feel like this car doesn't really fatigue very easily. It sounds interesting because it is only a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. I don't have the turbo model, and additionally, it's not known for being the fastest vehicle. But in comparison with my Hyundai Tucson, which weighed less, had only front-wheel drive, and with that had pretty similar horsepower outputs. I think the Tucson had 181, this one's got 187. This one feels so much different, and I honestly attribute it to the transmission. For one, is a little bit more aggressively geared. So in that case, when I was going 80 miles an hour, it was about 2,700 RPMs, where my Tucson would have been closer to maybe 2,400. So it seemed like it needed to downshift more, whereas this one was able to keep its top gear, in this case more easily. It didn't feel the need to accelerate or really need to push my foot down to get any torque. I found that this one was much more acceptable. There were, of course, a couple points because, you go up hills and this and that where the transmission did need to downshift, but I noticed it wasn't as gear hunty between 5th and 6th as my previous cars were. So I really did like that a lot. When it came down to the cabin, now the Mazda is a little bit louder than that of my Hyundai Tucson. The Tucson was very quiet, and my other cars were a little louder, of course, but they were sedans. In this respect, while there was a little bit more road noise, and you can hear the groan of the engine, or not really the groan, but like the humming of the engine, it wasn't intrusive. You definitely find that you hear more in this car, but I noticed that it's not unbearable. And when you turn your music up, or when you have somebody next to you, it's not something that gets in the way of your daily activities. It's pretty reasonable. The car is not really going to try to overtake your conversation. When acceleration did come up, of course, it came up a little slow, but again, it wasn't awful. I was able to pass with ease, and with that, the engine's pretty peppy in general. So in this regard, not anything that was uncomfortable for me, and the car definitely handled very well. These newer cars with electric power steering, they kind of feel like they're all over the road. This one feels a little bit more planted. It doesn't feel like the car is going to sway from side to side. My sister's RAV4 does give me that impression a little bit, but it's still better than some of the other cars I've driven. The Toyota Camry, when I test drove that one, it did feel a little bit more like it was all over the road and trying to find its direction. This one feels a lot more planted and comfortable, and honestly, I like the older steering rack better in terms of its design or in terms of its software. The steering is heavier, so in this regard, I found it to be pretty nice. I do actually like heavier steering. I'm not much of one that likes to have a car that's very floaty with the steering wheel, just because that's any sudden movements or any small movements, of course, can drift the car. Now, when we talk about the next thing, it was really interesting to hear that I had this, because honestly, I didn't realize that this one also had it, the cylinder deactivation. This vehicle, to save on fuel, will cut down 2 cylinders when you're cruising to give you better gas mileage. And in this regard, I was getting upwards of 32, 33. Of course, with that, this was not being easy with the vehicle either. I definitely was not going, 65 miles an hour. I was going with the flow of traffic, which was a lot faster. If those of you guys that have driven on the 15 freeway from LA to Las Vegas, you would know that traffic moves very quickly. This person is probably drunk, so we're just gonna go ahead and demonstrate that this car can get out of the way. Dude, lay off the beer. So, yeah. Don't know what they're doing, but interesting. So, with that, not too bad. Cruising-wise, RPM, you can see here, is a little bit, elevated compared to cars nowadays, but this seems to be a good sweet spot to maximize the fuel economy. Gas mileage, like I said, was excellent. I probably went, I would say, when I went to California, because I went to Knott's Berry Farm, which is roughly about 270 miles away from my house. I still had half a tank left, and then I ended up going from Knott's Berry Farm, driving 30 miles to Santa Monica Pier, and then, actually, not even that, I went to the Academy Award Museum, and then afterwards drove to the pier, and I was still a little bit at half a tank, and then sitting in traffic, of course, kind of dipped me down a little bit. But in this respect, I went over 400 miles on this car before needing to fill up, which is really good considering how small gas tanks are. With that being said, on the way back, it was more uphill, so of course I used a little bit more fuel, but I still made it here in under half a tank. I actually had gotten back on Sunday. It is now Thursday, or Wednesday night going into Thursday, so I actually got an extra 3 days out of this tank, so pretty proud of that. Honestly, this car's gas mileage is amazing. It also is really comfortable. I didn't find the seats were overbearingly hard or anything of that sort. They didn't feel overstuffed. The heated seat function, I absolutely love it because I feel like I'm just gonna light fire. It feels really good on my back, no lie. And we all know that as you get older, you don't really need the heated seats. You need, for heating yourself, you need the heated seats to relax the muscles in your back. So in this regard, the seat was very comfortable. I noticed that I really didn't need to fidget around or anything of that sort. My Tucson seats maybe were a little more comfortable, but this is a close second, and honestly, I feel supported in these seats, which is good. I feel supported. Look at me. Needing support. Gravity. So, yeah, basically, I mean, I wanted just to share my experience on road tripping with a Mazda CX50 because honestly, it was really, really nice. And I will take this car on so many more road trips. And then with that also, I have another car that's currently under construction, but that will also be used for road trips. But I absolutely just love this vehicle. I really am happy that I got it. I did do some complaints on it because initially when I had gotten it, someone on the factory, like I said, they were working on a Friday or they were trying to piss their boss off or something, and I just happened to get the material. But otherwise, everything's been fixed, and this car has been, an absolute gem to drive. Very reliable and easy to work with, and really, honestly, applicable to my needs at the moment. So I really do like having it, and I hope to have many years with it. In this instance, the only thing that I can't stand, and I hate that I did this a second time, is I got another black one. I probably should have gotten white because rocks and dirt fly around, they chip your paint, and you can see it, and it drives me nuts. That's the only thing I don't like about taking this on road trips, is I always come back and I have to touch it up. But otherwise, like I said, that's just a small detail, and that's just me being picky and annoying. But this car is absolutely phenomenal, folks. And with that, if you are looking for something that's kind of, I guess the best way I want to describe it is that's kind of a little outdated, okay, but hear me out. It has all the technology that you need. You know, with that, the CX90 has the same infotainment system programming, etc., which is the newer vehicle. But mechanically, it's a little more old school. You know, it has a traditional torque converter along with a multi-plate or a multi-clutch design, so that way the transmission locks up the torque converter and yada, yada, yada more quickly. You know, there's high compression on the engine, which I use premium fuel for that reason. I know it doesn't need it, but I always feel like it would be a little bit better. But in this case, in terms of mechanic wise, this car is a little bit more like on the need to catch up scale, but it's more traditional, which I actually really enjoy. You know, with that, could this car have used like an 8-speed or maybe an inline 6? That would have been freaking cool. It could have, but it didn't, because the type of people that purchase this either use it for commuters, use it to get a smaller vehicle, maybe from a bigger one if they need to downsize, or in this case, do what I do, needing to actually have a vehicle that's likely going to retain better value than that of my Hyundai Tucson and keep it. And then, you know, with that, have something that looks nice, but also is economical. You know, maintenance on Mazdas and Toyotas aren't necessarily as high as other vehicles. So this is why, of course, I went with the Mazda. And plus the cost was a lot cheaper for a lot of high quality stuff. So I really like that. One thing I am excited about, honestly, because this car really does need it, despite me kind of opposing electrification on everything, is I'm really excited about the hybrid coming out on this car, because that's going to make the CX50 shine. I think it will actually outdo the RAV4. Even though the RAV4 is an excellent vehicle, I have a feeling the CX50 will win if they implement a hybrid system. You know, with that, make it optional, keep this powertrain as well as more of the basic powertrain, but a hybrid I could see in the future. And honestly, I really feel like Mazda could use it to be competitive. But on the same token, I do appreciate them being more traditional. No CVTs, 6-speed auto, and honestly, it's a good system. It's been around now for since 2011 or 12 with the Skyactiv systems, and they've only gotten better. So really happy to see that. And with that, folks, I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed this. Sorry I got a little bit rambly there, but in terms of road tripping, just to kind of wrap this all together, this literally is such a good road trip car. I really hope that if you guys do intend on purchasing that and going on trips with your family, Mazda really nailed it out of the park with the way this car handles. I absolutely just love it. So I hope you guys have a great night. Please be well, and we'll talk again.